my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill.
In a 2001 gaming article from The Washington Post, Tom Ham writes, Konami's latest PlayStation 2 title, Silent Hill 2, warps a seemingly innocent storyline in such a way that it's hard not to get pulled into its strange, frightening world. The eerie soundtrack and shrieking sound effects come in Dolby surround sound for a Hollywood-worthy experience. Whatever you do, leave the light on when you play this. Silent Hill 2 is now widely celebrated as the pinnacle of survival horror gaming. Critics and gamers alike give praise for its haunting and atmospheric storytelling, which is largely due to its meticulously crafted soundscape. Let's take a listen of what you first hear after you boot up the game.
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
This scene alone gives you a hint as to just how unsettling of an experience you're in for. In this video, I'm examining how diegetic ambience, contrasting musical compositions, and the implementation of dissociative character dialogue reflect the fractured mind of the game's protagonist, while simultaneously serving as a tool for world building. By pairing its unsettling soundtrack with disturbing imagery, Silent Hill 2 seduces players to embrace a dark and introspective journey. The composer of Silent Hill 2's soundtrack is none other than Akira Yamaoka, now widely respected for his work on the series. While I play multiple track snippets in this video, if you give the full soundtrack a listen, you'll come to understand how much depth and variety it displays. As for what inspired him throughout the game's creation, Yamaoka stated in a 2002 interview that he was influenced by Angelo Badalamenti's music from the TV show Twin Peaks, and that he listened to emotional songs a lot, among them groups such as Metallica. For players familiar with Twin Peaks music consisting of moody, evocative synth and jazz, or Metallica's sound of heavy metal and rock, that becomes quite obvious. To illustrate this unique blend of inspiration, I want to showcase the tracks Overdose Delusion and Alone in Town, respectively. From these song selections, the game stands out with a distinct sound that, at the time, differed from titles such as Resident Evil that used more cinematic music. So by now you're probably like, okay, cool, but what actually makes this game scary? Well, I'm glad you asked. What you just heard was a radio that emits static whenever enemies are nearby. This is the game's signature use of diegetic sound, as James is aware of it himself, and it is here where we can delve into Yamaoka's genius sound design of unnerving ambience. In a reputable journal article analyzing music from both the Silent Hill games and movies, film scholar K.G. Donnelly proclaims, "In Silent Hill, evil is associated sonically with the appearance of white noise. In terms of sound, white noise represents a primordial soup out of which other sounds can emerge. The soundtrack is landscape-like, enveloping and unsettling, mixing both beauty and ugliness." While not a revolutionary technique at the time, Silent Hill 2 still serves as an exemplar to this day of masterfully blurring the lines between music and sound, further transporting the player into a dreamlike state of confusion, as if we became the protagonist ourselves. Beyond its immediate audiovisual horror elements, the game's soundscape also employs moments of silence only perturbed by the sound of footsteps and doors opening, along with distorted industrial noise and melancholic melodies which enable the audience to experience James' internal struggles in a visceral manner. One of the game's most notable examples of dreadful dissonance is when players encounter the Pyramid Head, who sporadically stalks James throughout the game. Sound speaks more than any words I can try to describe this next scene, so let's just
It's
listen.
not human.
Pyramid Head represents James' own manifestation of guilt about his wife's fate, and his desire to be punished for it. It is no coincidence that he appears multiple times to torment James, and he is sure to strike fear in the hearts of new players. In a chapter of the book titled Music in Video Games Studying Play, writer Rebecca Roberts acknowledges how the soundtrack integrates seamless looping tracks to instill fear into the players, while also allowing for a whole cacophony of sounds that can be generated and played together to create music that incessantly rises in tension. This is most appreciated in tracks such as Blank Fairy, Block Mind, and Ashes and Ghost. As we can see, the monster's quality of body horror lends further support to the constant anxiety exuberating from the setting of the foggy streets or the various buildings' dark, claustrophobic corridors, which all comes together to give a platform that further elevates the psychological horror found in the ambience and soundtrack. One of the most appealing aspects of horror games is the fact that they evoke a response that is not frequently or commonly felt. In our relatively safe and modernized society, there aren't many moments we come across in which we actively fear for our lives. So it is through the interactive medium of a video game that Silent Hill 2 can expose the audience to its emotionally heavy and dark themes without taking a loss toward the enjoyment or fascination in the subject matter. This is touched upon in Bernard Perrin's book, Silent Hill, The Terror Engine, where the concept of aesthetic and art form is illuminated. The surface structure is grasped and appreciated in its own right without direct relation to what's happening in the fictional world. You can enjoy not as much fear itself as the way fear has been designed. While the context of this quote relates more to visual presentation, the question of how this pertains to the overall soundscape and even the game's characters themselves is of equal importance. Another audio component of Silent Hill 2 that deserves special attention is indeed the cultural and technical structure of its soundscape. As the Silent Hill series is made by Konami, a Japanese gaming company, it of course incorporates different styles of music not common in the West. A paper by Mattia Merlini beautifully discusses the notion of eclecticism in Japanese video game music. Particularly, there are two terms to make note of in the case of Silent Hill: horizontal eclecticism and mukukuseki. Horizontal eclecticism refers to the juxtaposition in time of sounds and tropes belonging to heterogeneous traditions or genres. An excellent example of horizontal eclecticism is Promise Reprise. Before we listen, I want to briefly introduce how these aspects of sound are associated with qualities of Gothic fiction. From the book Video Games and the Gothic refers to various branches of popular culture exhibiting a complex engagement with the spooky and ambivalent, and an uncertainty as to whether unsettling entities are real or emerge from their narrator's overwrought imagination. With that in mind, we can continue. This piece blends together melancholic piano melodies with faint industrial undertones, drawing from contrasting musical traditions to create an emotionally layered composition. Additionally, the combination of these dissimilar elements mirrors the Gothic's exploration of unresolved past trauma and the line between internal and external realities, which further immerses players into James' haunted psyche as we witness how his obsessions distort the environment. Now that moves us along to mukokuseki, which can best be translated into English as statelessness. It is mainly used to either suggest the mixing of elements of multiple cultural origins and to imply the erasure of visible ethnic and cultural characteristics. So this becomes quite interesting, as there's already an apparent purposeful mix of sounds from different regions, as I just mentioned. However, this concept serves as horizontal eclecticism's antithesis, rejecting that acknowledgement altogether. And yet, I think this still makes sense. Both concepts can exist in the same space and be used simultaneously without canceling each other out. Take this next track, No One Love You, for example. Here, there is no obvious influence from Japanese music nor Western music. The minimalist arrangement gives players the feeling that they're in some kind of purgatory, isolated and sorrowful. It simply exists within its own right and can only be described as something that sounds straight out of Silent Hill. Therefore, for songs such as these, it no longer matters where the music's influence has been drawn from, only that, in its full form, it is yet another tool to transmute intangible feelings and attribute them to our sense of hearing, further strengthening players' immersion through this connection between psychology and music. Lastly, I want to explore the supporting characters of Angela and Maria, since voice acting is another major factor of the game's dissociative, dreamlike aura, and the performance from these characters is outstanding. What stands out about Silent Hill 2 the most is perhaps its tasteful depiction of adult content, including topics like suicidal ideation, sexualization, and abuse. These characters have their own troubles relating to disturbing trauma, but they are also deeply intertwined with James' own personal journey, and convey a sense of collective psychosis, highlighting different parts of a fractured mind.
Me too. I'm looking for my mama. I mean my mother. It's been so long since I've seen her. Mama! Mama, I was looking for you. Now you're the only one left. Maybe then I can rest. Or maybe you think you can save me. Will you love me? Take care of me? Heal all my pain? That's what I thought.
Angela's trauma stems from being sexually abused by her father. Her interactions with James, especially during this burning staircase scene, exemplify her volatile mental state and show how she symbolizes James' own feeling of being trapped and wanting to end his own life, which he does do in one of the game's 6 possible endings. And of course there is Maria, who is an idealized, hallucinatory version of his dead wife, Mary. James is racked by the guilt of murdering Mary and conjures Maria to the realm of Silent Hill.
I look like Mary, don't I? You loved her, right? Or maybe you hated her.
Don't be ridiculous.
So it's okay?
Yeah, fine.
Maria's voice and demeanor are a distorted echo of Mary. Her exaggerated voice emphasizes her role as a projection of James' desires rather than a fully independent being. Her performative flirtation reveals James' inability to accept Mary's death. The surreal dynamic between James and Maria is heightened by the uncanny nature of her voice acting, which shifts from warmth to indifference depending on how much James cares about her.
Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? You don't sound very happy to see me. I was almost killed back there. Why didn't you try to save me? All you care about is that dead wife of yours.
In Silent Hill 2, the interplay between ambience, music, and dissociative voice acting creates an immersive experience unlike any other. Akira Yamaoka's innovative sound design seamlessly blends unsettling diegetic elements with wistful, industrial tracks, capturing the true essence of psychological horror. Consisting of a wide range of sound from eerie ambient effects to melancholic melodies, each track conveys emotions that are both deeply personal and perplexing. Paired with the Gothic-inspired exploration of unresolved trauma and fragmented identities, its eclectic soundscape drives the game to push past the horror genre's traditional limitations, such as jump scares and excessive gore. The unnatural voice performances of supporting characters, with their jarring pacing and delivery, stress the brokenness not only within James, but of everyone drawn to Silent Hill. Together, these elements weave an adventure that forces players to confront unsettling truths, presenting a peculiar perspective into the depths of trauma and mental illness. Silent Hill 2 remains a masterpiece of the survival horror genre and a testament to the power of sound and atmosphere in storytelling.